Hello, this is Carrie Barske Crawford, Director of the Shoals National Heritage Area. It is December 12th, 2019, and I'm here with Zac Abramson for the Choosing Here project. So Zac, thank you again for participating. We appreciate it tremendously.
Happy to do it.
Can we start by having you give us your full name and where you were born?
It's David Zachary Abramson. I was born in Lauderdale County, Alabama.
Perfect. So I know that you have a long family history here. Can you tell us a little bit about how your family came to Lauderdale County and a little bit about their background?
My mother's family came here the McIntyre family came here in the 1820s, and they settled in what is now Oakland, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And they came here from Oakland Township, South Carolina. So we've obviously been in that community for a very, very long time, and I identify very closely with that community because that's where I spent every summer growing up. My dad's family moved here in around, I think it was 1914. They came here from Finland by way of Michigan. And they settled in the Cloverdale community. There was a Finnish settlement there, several different Finnish families, and they were one of them.
Did they migrate? You know, obviously that's a period of a lot of tension in Europe. So did they spend a lot of time in Michigan before, or did they come pretty directly from Europe and then?
There was a large Finnish community in Calumet, Michigan. That's where they initially settled. And there were also several Swedish families there, and they all pretty much came for job opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah, because there wasn't a whole lot to do in the little town in Finland, which the little town they lived in sat right on the Swedish border. So my great grandmother was she was Swedish, and my great grandfather was Finnish, but they both spoke both languages. Yeah.
So when they arrived here, were they farming? Were they starting businesses?
They did a lot of things. They started out in the dairy business, and they founded and owned Cloverdale Dairies.
Okay.
And then they also did construction work, which is what my family did and still does.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
So.
And there was there I know there was a community, is that a community that remained pretty tight-knit over the years? And
Yes.
Yeah.
My grandfather had 19 brothers and sisters.
Whoa.
Same mom and dad, and my great-grandmother had 3 sets of twins.
Wow.
And some of them did intermarry with the other Finnish families, but not so many. They assimilated as quickly as possible.
Okay.
And they spoke Finnish at home, but they spoke English to everyone else that was around them in the community, even the other Finns, because they really wanted to become fully American.
Yeah.
And that was their way of. And now I would give anything if we all spoke Finnish.
I know.
So,
I know, that's always hard when you lose that language.
yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about, so you have a strong family connection to the area. Can you tell us a little bit about how you made the decision to make your life here?
Well, I never lived here. I was born here. My mom came home back to Lauderdale County for me to be born because she knew the doctors and she had family here, and it was much safer, in her opinion, for me to be born around a family and with doctors she knew. We, as soon as I was born and everything was good to go, we left and went back to, I believe at that time my parents lived in Coleman County. We were in the construction business, and we built culverts and all types of concrete construction. We did all kinds of bridge construction and culvert construction. And so we followed the interstate to Birmingham, building bridges and culverts. And then settled in Birmingham because it was a bigger city, more centrally located, and more business opportunities at the time. So that's how we ended up down there. I actually didn't live here in Lauderdale County until 1993. My family owned a business called Blue and Roberts Construction Company, which was based in Sheffield.
Okay.
A very old company, paving contractor. So that gave us the opportunity to do base, drain, grade, and pave the whole
Oh.
thing. So anyway, we had a business in Sheffield, and the gentleman that ran it was getting ready to retire, and my dad asked if I would want to move up here. And all my life, like we've discussed, I spent every summer in Oakland, and I was very familiar with Florence. The first movie I ever went to by myself was at the Shoals Theater with one of my cousins. Well, it wasn't necessarily by myself, but without an adult. They would drop us off at the Shoals Theater, and we would watch movies on Saturday. So I had a very close attachment to this area, and I always wanted to live here. Even though I was in Birmingham, the Magic City. It was a fabulous place. I love Birmingham. But I jumped at the opportunity to move here. And I always liked it here. And I still do. We sold our business here almost 20 years ago. And my dad asked me if I was going to move back to Birmingham, and I was immediately, no. I'm staying because I can't move my house, I can't move my friends, I can't move my church. So we're here. My parents have now moved back, so everybody's here.
Everybody's here. How long have you been in this house?
I've been in this house since 1994.
So pretty shortly after.
So I bought the house the next year. So.
Well, it's one of my favorite houses. So.
Mine too.
So can we sort of shift gears from sort of facts and talk a little bit about the meaning of the place? We're talking, the Heritage area covers 6 counties, but I know you have a very strong connection to Lauderdale County. So is there a place in that region that really holds a lot of meaning for you, or a place that there's a lot of memories? I know obviously family places in Oakland and others, but is there a specific place that you feel is integral to your story of why you chose to be here?
I would have to say Oakland, because that's where I spent most of my time as a child. We moved quite a bit until we settled in Birmingham. Of course, I started school in Birmingham, and we didn't move after that. But when I was much younger, we were moving a lot, and this was Lauderdale County, Oakland, Alabama, was always referred to as home. We're going home for Christmas. We're going home to see somebody in the family, or a friend, or something like that. So there was always an identification. There was 2 homes for me, and one was wherever we lived at the time, and then this was always home. So I think Oakland, as a child, there was all of my cousins, my grandparents, on both sides of the family, aunts and uncles nearby. So yes, this would be where I would and still identify as home.
Yes, let's pause this. My next question is, how did community impact your decision to live here? Are there specific community groups or organizations that you feel have made this place home to you?
I found it's very interesting when you move someplace where you essentially don't know anybody other than your family, which I didn't. It's very interesting, but given an opportunity in your early 30s to find a community. Most people have been in the same spot, or unless you move around a lot. I moved here and immediately found people. Like-minded people, interesting people, artists, writers, musicians, which my college background was in music performance. So I immediately found all these people, or they found me. I'm not sure how that worked, but anyway, and I made friends, and I discovered a community of people who were like-minded in a number of different ways, and that was sort of refreshing. I have a friend who recently died. His name was Louis Crew, and he was founder of Integrity in the Episcopal Church, and he and I communicated mostly by message on Facebook. But he told me that Florence was the most sophisticated city in the state of Alabama. And he was born in Alabama, grew up in Alabama, taught at Alabama, the college, and he said that he always found this to be truly one of the most sophisticated city in the state.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure that I think there's lots of wonderful communities and towns and cities in the state, but I like where we are. I like so much about it, and most of it has to do with the people.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been amazed. I've been here 8 years now. Can you believe that? And just, there's such a interesting group of people that do all sorts of really fascinating things for work or for, their art, and I'm never bored.
No, neither am I.
Okay, so I'm going to now make you use your imagination. So pretend I'm not from here and already aware of how incredibly special this place is. Tell me why I should choose here.
Okay. There's a certain comfort to this place, a certain ease of living that I have never really felt anywhere else. We have a house in Pensacola, which is a lovely place. I've lived in Birmingham, and both places are perfectly lovely, but there is something about the comfort. There's a feeling of safety. There's a feeling of community that I have here that I really have not had anywhere else. I think I would also say that there's a broadness of culture that is extremely appealing to me.
Yeah.
Because we have everything in the world, from intellectuals to musicians, in seemingly large numbers, writers, painters, people that seem to have a nice community, and they seem to nurture one another, and the community nurtures that.
Yeah.
We have, I forget how many theater groups. There's like 4 in Florence, and then there's one over across the river, and then there's a symphony for a town this size. It's remarkable. The university has always fostered the music and performance. It's amazing to be able to sing in a church choir with students who are studying to be opera singers. That all of that makes it a very welcoming place to me, even if I didn't, and I don't get out very much, but even if I, in the sort of quiet, small life that I like and that I have, it's easy to walk out the door and find something very interesting to do.
Yeah.
Almost any day.
Yeah.
And part of that has to do with living half a block from the university, but there's also so many other things. Individuals that have art classes going on, musicians that gather and play music together,
Yes.
poetry readings. I went to one not long ago. I'm going to another one in a couple of days. Those kinds of things were never as readily available to me anywhere else as they have been here.
Yeah.
So.
People always say there's something in the water.
Yes.
We're going to sort of end with, I'd like you to sort of think about how you're connected to the river and its history.
It's a part of all of our lives because we straddle it. The community sits right on it. And we don't do anything without it. And it's my great-grandmother and grandfather lived in a community for a brief period of time when my grandmother was a little girl called Woodland. Yes. And sat right on the edge of the river, and there was a huge spring that was the center of the community. And everybody got their water from the spring, and everybody ate fish from the river, and that was sort of part of the narrative of their lives that I heard growing up. We always camped on the creeks when I was little, which now the thought of camping is just, it's the last thing in the world I want to do, because, I can go home. But it was such a part of it, and the mouth of the creek went right into this enormous river, and we always had boats. We were always fishing. We were always water skiing. Both my parents water skied. It has always been an integral part of this community and living here, and access. Yeah. In so many different ways.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's easy to forget that it's even there,
Well, we train ourselves to ignore things sometimes because they're there. Yeah. We take them for granted, but it's such a lovely part. I moved here in January, and I will never forget crossing the river late in January of that year. It was in 93. I remember crossing the river, I think, for the first time, and it was at sunset. And I remember growing up in Birmingham, there's nothing but pine trees. Yeah. And you move here, and it's nothing but hardwoods. You have a few pine trees interspersed, but mostly along the river, it's gray. Yeah. And I remember thinking, it's such a gray place. And I drove across the river that day, and the sun was setting, and the water was gold, and everything around it was silver. Yeah. And it was the most beautiful sight. From that moment on, and I know one other thing. A couple of days later, I was crossing the river around the same time of day, and an eagle swept up right by O'Neill Bridge with a fish in its talons. And I thought, okay, this is significant. I nearly wrecked the car driving over the bridge, but yeah, those things, now I always look, and it's gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful, no matter what time of year. Yeah. But even at the grayest, coldest possible moment, I discovered something about it that I had never noticed before. Yeah. So now I look.
Yeah. I was driving back from Oxford yesterday, and I was on the Trace, and it's such a beautiful time to drive on the Trace because you can see the landscape. And, I was thinking, here we are, it was a gray, cold day, but where the leaves have fallen, and it's this golden brown, and then the green of the grass that's still coming up, and it's just so beautiful.
It is. It's just a lovely place, and I think the fact that we can drive minutes, and we are in the bend of the river, beautiful place, and we can drive down even if we go to the most accessible place there is, which is McFarland Park. We're right there on the side of where the water meets the land, which is a wonderful place to be.
It is. Yeah. It is. Well, fantastic. Well, thank you, Zac. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Wonderful.